Well, hello everyone. It's Patricia Warby, Alchemy Therapies and My Emotional Audit, and it's September. And September is an important month. It's the month actually that most of us go back to work or school and perhaps the start of a new term there. For me, it's also the time when I'm publishing my next book, Mind Medicine, which should go up tomorrow. I'm launching it, and it's been 9, 10, maybe even 10 months to a year of intense effort on my part. But today I'm not going to be talking about that. I'm going to be talking about someone else's book, which is by Donald R Hoffman, and this is The Case Against Reality. Now, I came across Donald Hoffman online, where he does a lot of YouTube videos talking to eminent scientists, like Roger Penrose, like Bernardo Kastrup, Fernando Fagan, and his idea that reality is an interface is one that's really catching on. And he likens it to sort of the icons on your desktop. But we tend to think that our senses give us information about reality out there as a separate thing that exists regardless of who's observing it. But he points out, of course, that we do know from quantum mechanics, quantum physics now shows us that reality really doesn't exist the way we expect it to. And it has very many weird different ways of interacting, like being everywhere all at once, or not in fact existing at all until we perceive it, which is a bizarre idea. And it really calls into question, therefore, the idea that our senses are reporting vericidal or true information about the world as it exists. And what he's done very cleverly, I think, is develop the theory that it's an evolutionary payoff against truth and towards fitness. In other words, the ability to carry on and spread our genes and make a successful evolutionary species. And he calls it fitness beats truth, or FBT. He's very fond of little acronyms. FBT was one of the ones that kept popping up in the book, and I had to keep reminding myself what that meant. Fitness beats truth. Sounds like a call to arms, doesn't it? So it kind of fits a bit alongside this book that I read about biological systems and agency, because he's saying that conscious agents, as he calls them, which we're a conscious agent, apparently, human beings, because we have consciousness, because we are able to interact with the world all by through this interface that isn't reality, and we do change it, therefore. And the idea that the interface itself is interpreting, if you like, what we're seeing doesn't make it any less useful, but it does mean that we can't accept the idea that this table that I'm sat at is absolutely what it looks like. For me, it's the way my senses are interpreting it is a perception, which does seem to strike at the heart of what is reality and what is consciousness. And it seems that matter, the things that we perceive in the universe, are as a result of consciousness and not the other way around. That neuroscientists have been famously trying to find the origin of consciousness in the brain. You know, how does matter and the firing of neurons create a sense of beingness, and of self-awareness, which is what consciousness is. And they've not been able to really explain it. There are lots of theories, but they get themselves into terrible trouble, because it's almost impossible to create the sense of the beingness or quality of experience from just repetitive firing of neurons. But if we reverse that conundrum and say, as Bernardo Kastrup and others do, that it's consciousness that is fundamental and creates matter as a sort of local appearance of these quantum possibility waves, then actually that conundrum of what was called the hard problem, how does consciousness arise from matter, is completely turned around and becomes entirely possible. that consciousness itself is driving evolution and our perceptions of reality. Now, I'd like to say I wholeheartedly recommend this book, but I can't. It's very detailed. One of the, it's a minor point, but one of the problems I have with it is it's tiny, tiny, tiny typeface once more, which makes it very hard to read, for me anyway, particularly in the evenings when you need artificial light. It's very detailed. Now, if you are a mathematician or a computer scientist or maybe a systems theorist, you're going to love this, because it really, it takes you through some of the systems theory, some of the computing modeling ideas. But for me, it was a little soulless. And I kind of struggled somewhat because he kept repeating a lot of the same ideas. I felt that this book could have been shorter because I think he was sort of padding it at some point. So that's definitely the impression I got. And now I'm one for reiterating information in different ways because people take in information if it's repeated. So it's not a bad thing necessarily. But I did kind of feel that this book had a great idea, but it would have been perhaps better, slightly shorter. It's, I think, 250 odd pages. I think it could have been just over 200 and still been really insightful. So that would be my only criticism. A little bit soulless, a little bit overlong. It took me a long time to read because of it being very, very small type. But I've gleaned a lot from it. Certainly in terms of how our eyes deceive us. I think he was very strong on that. Color, texture, how we look for patterns, I thought was a very strong part of the book. And in the center, actually, he's included some color plates which enable you to kind of see how you can manipulate color. Now, this one's very clever because it shows you that the color there, which appears brown and or sort of light brown, and the color there are in fact identical, but they simply don't look it. Because our eyes adjust for the idea of shading and shadowing, and so create a darker color even when that has been absolutely identically color matched. So, there was definitely some innovative, interesting theory here. I just found it overly tedious in places. Everyone, it seems, in this arena of consciousness seems to want to establish themselves as having a position, whether you're a panpsychist, an idealist, a materialist. You've got to have a something. And he's talking about conscious realism. That's his label, if you like. Bernardo Kastrup has a different one. I think it's called objective realism or something like that. Anyway, I wonder, is that a science thing, that you have to establish yourself as a sort of as a distinct category of belief, or is it because it's the philosophical basis where you argue your position? But for a lot of people out there, whether reality is real or not is kind of immaterial, and I'm sorry to say that, but it truly is. If we worried about what we're seeing and interacting with, well, we wouldn't have time to get on and live our lives. And so for me, I'm a bit more of a realist on that. And I think, well, I do believe they're probably correct, these physicists, that reality isn't what we perceive out there, because we're getting corroborating material from science. So we're being shown that the wave and the particle can interchange, and we can perceive that differently depending on how we measure it. So we know that that's the reality. But on your day-to-day life, where you go around and you interact with people and things, it really doesn't matter what position you hold. And that would be my my kind of viewpoint on this, is that we just need to get on and learn to cooperate with each other, perhaps, and be a lot kinder, a lot more open, and a lot more giving. And so having a hard position on how you perceive reality is not really going to advance that, in my view. But I'd love to hear what you guys think. Do you have a feeling about reality? Did when you watched maybe the Matrix movie, did that ring a bell for you as something that made sense that we're all in a simulation, for instance. I certainly felt there was a resonance there for me, that reality, how I perceive it, even time, because by the way, this theory does destroy the idea that there's time, space-time, that too has to fall. You know, the time as we perceive it can slow down and speed up depending on how, not just our speed through the universe, which is, you know, what quantum physics tells us, but also how much we're engaged in a task, how enjoyable we're finding it. And I've certainly had that experience where time speeds up when I'm very scheduled and I'm very sort of on that busy beta brainwave kind of focus. And then when I kind of let go and I can just have things happening in my day that aren't scheduled, then time seems to expand and the day seems longer. Has anyone else had that experience? I find that really fascinating. So, you know, the way we interact with the world does matter. It's just the position or that I take on that, I don't think does matter a jot. Nobody cares actually what I believe. They might care what Donald believes and what he's arguing in this book. He's an important thinker, don't get me wrong, he truly is. And I would suggest watching his video conversations with other philosophers and scientists, because that's where you'll get the real essence of this. The book itself, well, the subtitle, by the way, The Case Against Reality, How Evolution Hid the Truth from Our Eyes. You know that evolution works alongside fitness payoffs. It creates the ability for us to survive. I think it's a great idea, but I think you can get a better viewpoint from watching his exposition when he's talking about it than when he's written about it. So great idea, very mind expanding, but not one that I will probably return to. So, okay, folks, well, if you'd like to find me, you can find me on alchemytherapies.co.uk. And I'm about to launch the book, as I said, Mind Medicine. That should be available on Amazon from this week. And the first week is going to be, because it's new, I'm going to launch it at a bargain price. So if you want to get in and get your copy, please find me on Amazon, and I'll look forward to hearing what you thought. Take care, everyone. Bye for now.